Hello again. Today I'll be talking on the theoretical perspective, the last section, and then I'll move to key concepts in cultural studies. Key concepts in cultural studies comprise of the following points: presentation, materialism, non-reductionism, power articulation, popular culture, ideology, hegemony, subjectivity and identity, and then text and readers or audiences. Culture and industry, and we'll be talking about FISC, culture, industry, and reader popular culture. And the usage of in the usage by John Fiske and other thinkers in the field of cultural studies, the terms popular culture and the popular in general suggest that people themselves choose and construct the popular culture. And here, popular culture describes culture of, by, and for the people. And in this particular aspect, people create and participate in cultural practices which articulate their experiences and aspirations. Fiske defines popular as that which the audiences make of and do with the commodities of the culture industries. And these culture industries operate in a market which is governed by commercial and ideological imperatives. And for Fiske, there can be no instance of popular which involves domination. Therefore, according to him, popular is excluded from any sort of domination and manipulation. And again, he held that a cultural analysis of cultural text and audience reception would reveal the way the dominant ideology was structured in the text and into the reading subject. So, according to him, domination exists within the text and according to the dominant ideology. The popular is not just created by the audience alone, and it is actually negotiated between the text and the reader, between the audience and cultural producers. And this is with the mediation of the culture industry. With culture industry, with hype, with public relations, and also media discourses. The popular is produced by advertising, through advertisement, public relations, critiques, and generally speaking by media. The popular is actually negotiated in the interaction between the audience and also cultural industries. Cultural industries relates to the process of industrialization of mass-produced culture and commercial imperatives. And the products of culture industries had a specific function. They most of the time provide ideological legitimacy to the capitalist societies and integrated individuals into the framework of mass culture and society. It is also important to know that these culture industries pay people a huge amount of money to accurately research what will be sold in the market, what will sell in the market, and then aggressively produce and market such profitable products. This is, as I said, according to Fiske and how he sees culture in relation to the industry and how do we market culture. I've been talking and discussing cultural studies, and at the same time I was using different concepts. Among these concepts we find power, ideology, hegemony, and so on and so forth. And these concepts are very important and very pertinent. And in this section, which is section 3, I'll be talking about key concepts in cultural studies. And I will start sorry, with representation. Cultural studies emphasize or focus on representation, which refers to how the world is socially constructed and represented to us by ourselves in meaningful ways or by others. The major stress of cultural studies is on the study of culture as the signifying practice of representation. It's very pertinent to understand that the notion of representation is also used by media in order to give us the product of culture, to materialize the notion of culture, and to build this relationship between the audience and the producers. And this is, of course, is true representation where materialism plays a crucial role. The second concept is materialism. And cultural studies have developed a form of materialism concerned with understanding how and why specific meanings are inscribed at a certain time of production. In addition to keeping the focus on signifying practices, cultural studies also tries to connect them to political economy. In this manner, cultural studies as a discipline is concerned with power and the distribution of economic and social resources. This is to say, to materialize, to make culture the material of a certain society. And again, this is also about the notion of power. Non-reductionism is a third concept which is central characteristic of cultural studies, and which is viewed as having its own particular meanings, rules and practices which cannot be reduced to or explained only in terms of some other category or level of social formation. So cultural studies does not accept the reduction of certain concepts and putting them just for the reader, just because they mean specifically, or they are concerned specifically with a certain society or a certain people. No, the concept of cultural studies is against the reductionist view of culture in the world and within different societies. Also, culture or cultural studies is concerned with the notion of articulation. It links culture to social phenomenon or social phenomena in general. The concept of articulation has been deployed by cultural studies for theorizing the relationships among various components of social formation. It points towards mainly the formation of temporary unity among elements which do not necessarily have to go together. And articulation, if we want to make it this way, refers to expressing and representing as well as putting together. And in cultural studies, it is a method used to analyze culture in relation to power. And power is the fifth concept that needs to be analyzed while reading cultural studies. And power is the capacity of imposing one's will on others, through different means, of course. It is a common argument that media has too much power. That's why what we receive as the readers is mostly produced through media. And media, in this way, has power over the reader, because it is the producer. And power here is the notion upon which cultural studies began to analyze its elements within different discourses. There is a startling argument among cultural studies writers and thinkers about the centrality of the concept of power. And for them, power is seen as pervading at every level of social relations. The sixth, which is popular culture. Subordination takes place due to coercion as well as consent. And cultural studies understands popular culture as the grounds on which this consent is obtained or lost. And in order to understand the interplay of power and consent, two related concepts, which are ideology and hegemony, often are deployed in earlier texts of cultural studies to know how popular culture functions within the general culture. So the seventh is ideology. The term ideology has multiple definitions. We start with Williams, who defines ideology at three levels, or in three different meanings. Williams defines ideology as a system of beliefs and characteristics of a particular culture or a group. That's one. Two is ideology is a system of beliefs which is opposite to true scientific knowledge. So the first one is a system of beliefs characteristic of a particular class or group, and the second one is a system of beliefs which is opposite to true scientific knowledge. And the third is the general process of the production of meanings and ideas. Marx and Engels also defined ideology as follows. It is the idea of the ruling class, the idea of the ruling class are in every epoch the ruling idea or ideas. And the class which has the means of and the materials of production at its disposal has control at the same time over the means of mental production. So for Marx and Engels, when the ruling class has the means of production, the idea it is produced is related to the ruling class. All that we have, that we know, that we understand, is transmitted through means of production of the ruling classes, and all that we understand is the idea or the ideas of the ruling classes, of course. So for Marx and Engels, ideology is the popular view on an issue which is constructed by the powerful and elite class, so that they can control the way society and its people can behave in different ways. And an ideology is therefore a set of beliefs that influences our perspective on the things around us, and these are closely held beliefs that may have been instilled in us consciously or unconsciously. Antonio Gramsci also introduced the concept of hegemony so as to explain ideology. And in here I will later move to the concept of hegemony and come back to ideology in order to make sense of our culture, how our culture functions in relation to society, power and politics. Let us go to another one, which is Louis Althusser, but I'll come back to Antonio Gramsci. Louis Althusser claims that a certain ideology about an issue becomes the dominant ideology in certain society. And individuals and institutions who have dominant positions in the society can propagate a certain ideology in two different ways. Either by using force, which has explicit agendas to exert and control, and these are called repressive state apparatuses, or through media, education, family, which often functions semi-independently and without explicit intent to exert control. And these are called ideological state apparatuses. So there are two apparatuses, repressive state apparatuses and ideological state apparatuses. Therefore, media here represent a certain kind of ideology with respect to everything, the exchange of ideology, if we want to make it this way, whether it is gender, caste, class, religion, or sexuality. And media also produce certain narratives and which either completely ignore others or represent them in the way of the dominant ideology. And one main feature of the concept of media and ideology is to manipulation. Again, power. The next, which is hegemony. Hegemony is another is presented to us by another important theoretician in cultural hegemony, who is Gramsci. And he defines the term as the political, economic, or military predominance or control of one state over others. If we go to the Oxford Dictionary, the term is widely introduced as to denote the social or cultural predominance or ascendancy, predominance by one group within society or milieu. And for Gramsci, hegemony refers to the dominating idea about a certain issue. And this domination can be by force or with consent of people. However, these ideas become dominant not because someone is forced to accept it or to do so. It becomes dominant as it is inculcated in such a manner that it starts to become a common sense. This means that people start to feel that a certain view is the only correct view about subject. And how these people come to this conclusion, it is through ideology, the ideology which is spread through different means of production. And these powerful institutions can be family, for instance, religion, community, media, and hegemony was extended to describe the predominance of one country upon other countries. And this denotes hegemony, that hegemony leads to a definition of imperialism and colonialism. 9, subjectivity and identity. Identity is the sense of self and the process of definition of that sense. How we perceive ourselves and how we present ourselves to others and how we realize the existence of ourselves as identity. It is commonly argued that media plays a significant role in this process. And cultural studies looks into how we come to be the kind of people we are, how we are produced as subjects, and how we identify with descriptions of ourselves. If we ask the question, or if we are permitted to ask this question and say, what makes us Moroccans, for instance? We need to go back to different categories within cultural studies. So first, symbols. We can talk about the flag. We can talk about the national hymen. We can talk about language. We can talk about religion. All of these participate in order to tell us something about our identity. You see, in cultural studies, everything is linked to one another. It's like a chain of differences and of understanding. The last concept is text and reader or audience. The production of consent to a certain degree, refers to popular texts. Sometimes we call them canonical texts. And these texts refer to written words as well as the practices signified or had significant power within society. Texts generally describe a range of cultural objects, meaning, therefore, is produced by the interplay of text and reader. So, consent is not imposed in this way, but it is an arrangement between the text and reader. How we understand the text, how the text is presented before us, makes consent within a certain society. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you in next episodes.